Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor Podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hi everyone, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're all doing well today. In today's podcast, I want to continue a theme that we've been discussing over the past few podcasts, and that is regarding TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and its diagnostic value, and is it the ultimate biomarker for thyroid function? You know, should we really hang our hat on that? Can we order TSH and look at TSH and have confidence if it's normal that the thyroid's normal? And I think, a lot of people that follow me, my thoughts on this already, right? You know that I don't think that TSH is enough. And I think that when you look at the thyroid hormone physiology and you really look at the entire process of thyroid hormone production, how it begins in the brain with the hypothalamus, how it's a process where the pituitary gland is then stimulated, and the pituitary gland then stimulates the thyroid hormone, and then the thyroid hormone makes your T4, T3, and then the hormone has to be transported through the blood and then converted into primarily T4 that's made by your thyroid has to be converted into T3. That occurs in different places throughout the body, primarily the liver, the gut, and then somewhat in the peripheral tissues of the body. And then that has to be transported again to the tissues of the body, to the cells of the body where it has to be used. And you have to have sensitivity at the level of the cell to be able to use those hormones. And there are a lot of ways that the normal physiology can break down that one system, for example, the immune system could, through an inflammatory process, let's say as with Hashimoto's, could create problems with this physiology. And there are then other ways that are due to things like industrial chemicals that can disrupt this physiology at multiple steps. And when you look at all of the ways that the thyroid physiology can break down, there are probably over 50. And so TSH is really looking at the feedback to the brain, and the brain's signaling of the thyroid or not to make hormone, right? That's what the TSH is really doing. And I mean, I like the idea of looking to the brain and the intelligence of the body as to whether or not the body needs more thyroid hormone. But there are too many other pieces of the puzzle that could break down and cause you to still have symptoms even though your TSH is normal. Okay, and there's a lot of different ways. So, for example, I just walked through all this physiology that TSH does not evaluate. I mean, TSH doesn't reflect the sensitivity of your cells to the thyroid hormone in circulation. TSH doesn't reflect conversion of T4 to T3 or lack of conversion, problems with conversion. It doesn't reflect whether or not you have, excessive amounts of or increased amounts of your thyroid hormone stuck to the little carrier proteins in the blood that during the transportation process that are not available to the cells of the body because of altered or high estrogens. Right? It doesn't tell you if you have a high inflammatory load that's creating problems with conversion or sensitivity of the cell. It doesn't tell you if you have nutrient-based issues where you can't convert properly, or problems with elevated cortisol that are causing conversion-based issues, or any of the other problems with chemicals breaking down the physiology. There's just so many different ways that TSH just does not give us a reflection of the physiology. And I think it's really important to acknowledge some of the shortcomings of TSH. I mean, it's whenever I look at people and their thyroid function clinically, I look at a lot of different markers. And I'm not saying the standard of care in medicine is looking at TSH. And I think, when you start looking at it, I mean, it's, we have to consider things like, well, if the person has a TSH that's maybe considered normal within the lab range, right? So lab range for TSH is about 0.4 to 4.5. That's typically what you see. But let's say it's 3.5. Well, there are a lot of people, including myself, that think that ideal TSH is probably 0.4 to 2.5, or even 1.5 to 2.5. And if you get above 2.5, there's a greater likelihood that there are other problems like Hashimoto's or autoimmunity, and there's some research that suggests that if you have TSH above 2.5 but it's below 4.5, right, it's in that range that might not be optimal, that there could be some other things at play, and that we need to maybe look at the thyroid hormone markers like T4 and T3 and reverse T3 and some of these other markers more closely to see if there's something that we're missing, right? So I'm suggesting that maybe as a screening tool, if someone's not feeling well, even though their thyroid hormones, their TSH is considered normal, but if it's above 2.5 to 4.5, that we maybe consider ordering a few additional markers. And I think people look at that and they say, well, who says other than you that this is how it should be? And look, I'm just saying, I'll tell you this, first and foremost, it's my opinion based on clinical experience and training. I've had a lot of training through a lot of respectable organizations that teach this approach. But I'll tell you this, if you look at the European Thyroid Association, they say, and basically I'm going to really summarize it, that TSH alone may not be a good marker for determining the adequacy of thyroid hormone replacement. And I think that's a very, I think that's a good thing I think that's an accurate statement. I mean, I don't think that it's adequate to really look at people that have like suboptimal thyroid function, right? You're looking at these, outright high or low thyroid, numbers and to give you guidance. And it would be nice if everyone fell into that range, but millions and millions and millions of people continue to suffer due to these suboptimal ranges not being, determined. I mean, they're told that their labs look fine, but they still don't feel well. And a lot of these people are, they might be given, another prescription to try to handle those symptoms, which is a great thing to do to try to help people. I get it. But I mean, what if there's just something else that we could do that we could tweak, or maybe they really do need some thyroid hormone replacement that might be beneficial. How could that change their life? That may make all the difference. So I just really wanted to share this particular podcast to discuss TSH in more detail, because I think it's so important for us to look at it as one piece of the puzzle. It's a good screening test, I think, but you've got to look at it, I think, more of the subtleties of it. Is it above 2.5, below 4.5? If it is, and they still have symptoms, then maybe you need to go deeper, and maybe you need to consider other physiological processes that are at play here, especially Hashimoto's, first and foremost. And then, of course, if there's Hashimoto's, or depending on what's driving it, you've got to figure out, well, okay, how do we address what's driving this process to the best of our ability? How do we support it? So those are that's the food for thought I wanted to give you guys today. But I hope this helps you, again, to be your own advocates and be more active participants in your healthcare, be better partners with your doctors, because they're trying to help you and they want to help you. So please don't have an adversarial approach with your doctors. They all want to help and mean the best and mean well. I'm just trying to help give you guys some perspective, and so that you can be an active participant and you can give input and your thoughts on what's going on too. But I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out. It's my mission to change one person's life at a time. If I can change your life, then I know we can have a positive impact on your family, your community, and ultimately that's how we're going to change the world. So I appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks for hanging out. Talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshook.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.